Om. Om. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace. Peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. So, good evening, beloved, and welcome to the class on the life of Sri Sarada Devi, the Holy Mother. We're in the chapter on Mother as the Mother of the Universe, and we have come to the subhead, Mother of the Outcast and the Wretched. Mother of the Outcast and the Wretched. It is hard for the Westerner or a modern Indian to understand the caste system in 19th and early 20th century India. For example, Brahmins, the highest caste, would not eat food or even drink water that had been touched by anyone from the other three castes, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, or from non-Hindus. Society was extremely rigid regarding these caste rules, especially extremely rigid regarding these caste rules, especially in the villages. Anyone who broke caste rules was considered an outcast, and his or her family would be shunned. Even some wealthy and famous families were victims of these merciless social restrictions. For example, the Dakshineshwar Kali temple's founder, Rani Rasmani, was from a low caste and was told not to offer cooked food to Mother Kali. Fortunately, Ramakrishna's brother Ramkumar found a way around that problem. Even Rabindranath Tagore's family was looked down upon by high caste Brahmins because of their close association with Muslims. Now, when the Swami says it's hard for us to understand, let's just pause and think about what it would be like if simply because you took food or drank water, or even were in the presence too much of someone who was, this now relates to the Tagore family and their association with Muslims. It's inconceivable for us, really, to think that such behavior could be, that you would be shunned, excommunicated from the life of the village, from the life of a group of people, simply because you broke these caste rules. Now, the Swami makes a point of this, as we'll see. We've seen many examples of this before in the book, but it's because Mother, Holy Mother, simply disregarded these things. And she knew about them, and she would do such things as wear her veil, even though it was uncomfortable for her, to follow as best she could whatever rules that were tolerable to her. But she simply did not, because of her, who she was, mother of even the outcast and the wretched, did not follow the caste rules. Holy Mother followed the Master's teaching that devotees have no caste. Devotees have no caste. Why? Because they are the Lord's own. They're outside all of those restrictions. They have taken refuge in the Lord and therefore no longer have any caste. She followed the Master's teaching that devotees have no caste. How can there be caste distinction among the children of God? She did not deviate from her ideal. She had disciples and devotees from all castes, and she served them in Calcutta as well as in Jairambati. Now, in Jairambati, this was a very orthodox village. And so, as we've heard from time to time throughout the book, this occasionally would cause problems. Once Mother initiated a devotee who was a, what is that word?
It's Yugi, Brother Shankara.
Yugi. Okay, who was a Yugi.
I know.
Which was a low caste which was a low weaver caste. He was hesitant to associate freely with other devotees in Jairambati. Holy Mother reassured him, saying, "My son, why do you feel insecure because you are a yogi? You belong to the Master's fold. You belong to the Master's fold." Let's assimilate that. Having taken initiation from the Mother, you have taken refuge in the Master. You belong to the Master's fold. You belong to his family. When she had initiated him, she had not asked him about his caste. She accepted him as her disciple, so she felt no one in her village should question him about his social position, nor was it necessary for him to talk about it with others. This is where you see the Mother of the Universe putting her foot down, just don't trouble me about these social conventions, and don't trouble my disciples about them either. Once during Durga Puja, many devotees were offering flowers at her feet. A man from Tajpur was standing outside. He was afraid to come inside and offer a flower to her because he was a Bhagdi, which was a low caste. But Holy Mother herself asked him to come into her room and offer his flower, which he did. He then left for home, overwhelmed with joy. You can imagine. My guru pays no attention to these things. My guru does not box me in. How can there be limitations from the Mother of the Universe? He then left for home, overwhelmed with joy. These incidents might seem insignificant nowadays, but at that time, caste was an important issue in Indian society. Once a group of snake charmers came to Jairambati and began to play their
Digdigi.
small tabors on the street. When they came near the mother's house, she became curious to see their snakes. She called them to her courtyard and asked them to perform their show. She offered to pay them. Listening to the sound of the snake charmer's dudugi,
Digdigi. Yeah, I think so. I think it's Digdigi.
many villagers and their children assembled at the mother's house. The snake charmers opened the boxes of snakes, and when they played their flutes, the snakes raised their hoods and began to move their heads rhythmically. When the show was over, Holy Mother gave them 2 rupees and a cloth and fed them puffed rice and molasses. The leader took the dust of the mother's feet and she blessed him by touching his head. One of her sisters-in-law remarked, "It is enough that you have given them money, a cloth, and refreshments. Why did you touch that snake charmer? Day and night they touch snakes. There must be poison on their hands. You are not supposed to touch them." Holy Mother humbly replied, "Well, what can I do? That man saluted me by touching my feet, and how could I forbid him? If a person salutes me, shall I not bless him by touching his head?" If that doesn't touch our hearts, it just simply didn't matter to her about all of these thoughts. If a person salutes me, shall I not bless him by touching his head? It was August 1917. Holy Mother went to visit the sick widow of Rajendra. Oh my goodness.
It's Bandyopadhyay.
Say it again, please, dear.
Bandyopadhyay.
Okay, Rajendra Bandyopadhyay.
That's right.
Who had a little boy and no one to care for her. Who had a little boy and no one to care for her. I guess she meant the widow. She had an abscess in her ear and it was infected. Worms grew in the sore and it smelled so bad that no one would go near her. Their mother made a solution from margosa leaves and with the help of a brahmachari cleaned her wound with a syringe. She then said to Bharata, "You sometimes take helpless patients in Koalpura ashrama and care for them. It would be nice if you take this helpless widow and serve her. Please consult with Kedar, Swami Keshavananda. This woman does not have anyone to look after her. No one goes near her because of the bad odor. I am pained when I see our little boy is suffering." Immediately, Bharata left for Koalpura and reported everything to Keshavananda, who agreed to take in the widow. Bharata could not find a palanquin, so they hired a bullock cart and traveled to Jairambati via something and Shihar. Holy Mother was pleased to see them. She served refreshments of puffed rice and sweets and asked them to pick up that woman right away or it would be too late to reach Koalpura. Notice how practical she was.
Very.
Always thinking about process. She was so remarkable in so many ways. She asked them to pick up that woman right away or it would be too late to reach Koalpura. Holy Mother fed the patient a little warm milk and consoled her. The monks collected a wooden plank and used it as a stretcher to get the patient on the bullock cart. They reached Koalpura in the evening after going 7 or 8 miles. Pus and blood were coming from both of the woman's ears, and the smell was horrible. The doctor treated her, and the monks cared for her day and night. But unfortunately, she died after a few days. The monks cremated her body and went to Jairambati to give Holy Mother the news. She said, "My son, you have all worked like her own children. If she had stayed here, she would have died without any care or even without a little water." Now, it was made a point of earlier in the book, but I'll remind those of us who don't. I mean, it seems incredible to us now, but a widow at that time was helpless. She couldn't remarry. She couldn't work in the sense of regular employment. So she was helpless. So this is mother taking care of that. And of course, that infection, of course, had reached the woman's brain. That's why she died. It doesn't say what happened to her son, but you can imagine that the mother looked after it somehow, found a way for a relative to take the child. I'm betting. Okay, before we go on to the next subhead, any comments or questions about what's been talked about so far?
Yes, Brother Shankar, I have one comment.
Yes.
When Ramakrishna came to the temple when he was young, he was also very orthodox and strictly observed the caste rules and all that. And he did not even eat at the temple. He
No,
used
he
to
cooked
cook
his
his
own.
own.
Yeah,
He used to cook his own food or
yes.
buy food from outside.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and it was Ram Kumar who persuaded him that this was unnecessary. But it was a little bit of a process. He was 19 years old when he came there. And as Sham pointed out, he was still quite orthodox. I mean, he'd been raised as an orthodox Brahmin boy in Kamarpukur, where things were just as strict and, as the Swami Chaitanyananda pointed out, merciless as they were in Jairambati. Even though Sri Ramakrishna, even as a boy, did ignore the caste rules. He took food from the wife of a blacksmith
Dhani Ram.
at a ceremony where that was rather scandalous. So, anything else? Thank you, Sham. You're absolutely right. Anything else from anyone? Okay. Mother, subhead, mother of the eccentrics and the crazy. Mental balance is extremely important in spiritual life. Holy Mother advised her disciples to maintain calmness in the brain and stomach. Maintain calmness in the brain and stomach, which is indispensable for practicing japa and meditation. Those who suffer from headaches and stomach aches cannot concentrate their minds on God. And we all know this to be true when we have. And what Swami Prabhupada used to say, make your japa anyway, even if you can't focus. Go ahead and do your japam anyway. Do the best you can. But those, it says here, those who suffer from headaches and stomach aches cannot concentrate their minds on God. It's true. The mind is pulled away to the body. Krishna says in the Gita, equanimity of the mind is called yoga. The mother attracted all types of people. Some were sane and some insane. The difference between the sane and the insane is that a sane person has control over his or her emotions, whereas an insane person does not. It is amazing how the mother endured the eccentricity and craziness of her disciples, devotees, and relatives by her Herculean patience and perseverance, love and forgiveness. Now, the Swami doesn't choose words lightly. When he says Herculean, this refers to the labors of Hercules, the unforgiving and unremitting labors of Hercules. You can look the story up in mythology. Herculean patience and perseverance, love and forgiveness. The following stories will inspire us to develop interpersonal relationships and the ability to adjust to circumstances with compassion and a charitable outlook. Now, here the Swami quite overtly, I'm going to read that again. I've often remarked that the Swami has put things in the book as a way of instruction to us. Here, he's quite overt. The following stories will inspire us to develop interpersonal relationships and the ability to adjust to circumstances with compassion and a charitable outlook. One day, a woman bit Holy Mother's big toe while taking leave of her. The mother cried aloud, "Goodness gracious, what kind of devotion is this? If you want to touch my feet, why not do so? Why bite the toe?" The woman said, "I want you to remember me." Now, that's really quite an honest statement. "I want you to remember me." "Indeed," the mother replied, "I have never before seen such a novel way of making me remember a devotee." Now, you got to hand it to the woman, really. It's crazy, but it's effective. But you'll notice the mother didn't toss her out, didn't condemn her, she just said, "What is this?" And the woman said, "I want you to remember me." "Indeed," the mother replied, "I have never before seen such a novel way of making me remember a devotee." Another time, a male devotee, while saluting her, struck her little toe with his forehead with such force that the mother cried out in pain. When those present asked the devotee the reason for his shameful conduct, he replied, "I purposely gave her pain while saluting her so that she would remember me as long as the pain lasts." Again, the same tactic. Who would have thunk it, huh? I purposely gave her pain while saluting her so that she would remember me as long as the pain lasts. In 1909, Sharadananda went to Jairambati to partition the family property among the brothers of Holy Mother, who was also there. A young man wanted to see the mother, so Swami Sharadananda asked his attendant, Brahmachari Jnanananda, is that right? Jnanananda, later Swami Bhutananda?
Umananda?
Bhumananda to take him to her. He bowed down to the mother, who was then standing on the veranda, and then he began to pull her feet so that they would touch his chest. Luckily, the mother was holding a pole in her cottage, otherwise she would have fallen. Instantly, Ganananda grabbed that crazy fellow's hand and took him out. When Sharadananda learned of this of this bizarre incident, he remarked, Swami Yogananda never bowed down to the mother while she was standing. When she left a place, he would take the dust from that spot and put it on his head. We read about that earlier in the book. So the guy was trying to get mother to put her feet on his chest, but she couldn't do that while she was standing up. So it was just craziness. There was no end to the bizarre demands placed upon Holy Mother. She unflinchingly fulfilled her devotees' wishes. A man came to her in Jairambati and said that he would not drink water until he had worshipped her feet. Holy Mother was working in the kitchen. She left her work and stood on a low wooden seat on the veranda so the devotee could offer flowers at her feet. Then she rushed back to the kitchen to finish preparing food for the devotees. A devotee named Umesh Datta wanted the mother's rice prasad, which he had planned to dry in the sun and carry home with him after 3 days. The mother gave him a plate of her prasad and asked him to watch it so that it would not be eaten by crows. The devotee put the plate of rice in the sun in front of mother's room and said he would be back soon. He went to the guest room for a smoke and then fell asleep, forgetting the rice. At 3 o'clock after his nap, he remembered the rice, went to the house, and found the mother seated there. She told him, "My son, I'm seated here lest the crows eat this rice." Ashamed, he apologized. "Mother, I'm sorry that you did not get any rest today." He took his rest, forgot about the rice, but mother did not forget. "My son, I am seated here lest the crows eat the rice." One day, a devotee grabbed Holy Mother's feet and said, "Mother, promise that you will appear before me at the time of my death." The Holy Mother replied, "I shall pray to the Master so that you can have his vision." When the devotee was persistent, with no other alternative, she said, "All right, my son, let it be so." Now, the Swami was very clear that these stories were related to us for instruction. We can make even importunate demands on the mother, even unreasonable demands on the mother, and be like a petulant or tamasic child. Sri Ramakrishna speaks of this as tamasic devotion. And he says, do it. If that's your nature, do it. The mother replied, "I shall pray to the Master that you can have his vision at the time of your death." When the devotee was persistent, with no other alternative, she said, "All right, my son, let it be so." So do not be afraid of the mother. Do not be afraid of asking for what you truly want, even if it's unreasonable. We too are just as sane as we are. We're not necessarily 100% sane. We're just as sane as we're capable of being at any particular moment. And sometimes we get unreasonable. Well, let it be so, as the mother said. One afternoon in Jairambati, the mother was lying on a mat on the veranda. When Brahmachari Bharata came, she indignantly said, "You boys went out on errands and no one was here to look after me. An old man came with X. When I saw him, I went inside the room and sat on my cot. He was anxious to take the dust of my feet, and I forbade him. He forcefully took the dust of my feet. Since then, I've had a burning sensation in my feet, as well as a terrible stomachache. I have washed my feet 4 times, and still the burning is there. If you had been here, I would have signaled you to stop him. In Calcutta, they are strict about my visitors. All sorts of people come to me. You boys are young, so you do not understand the nature of these people." The things that Mother put up with. Often, devotees made unreasonable demands upon Holy Mother. Some would demand a vision of God or liberation. She always succeeded in soothing their restless minds. Once in Udbodhan House, just to remind you, Udbodhan House is the Calcutta residence. Once in Udbodhan House, the mother had just finished her daily worship when an unknown devotee appeared with some flowers, evidently to worship her feet. At the sight of a stranger, she sat on the bed with her feet hanging and wrapped herself with a cotton shawl, as was her habit. The man made an elaborate genuflection, offered flowers at her feet, and began to perform breathing exercises and other rituals, as one does before an image. Everyone was busy with other duties, and no one was near the mother. This went on for a long time, and Holy Mother began to perspire heavily under the shawl. Golap Ma saw the devotee offering the flowers at Holy Mother's feet, and then left to do some work. When Golap Ma returned quite a while later, she saw that the devotee was still seated in front of the mother. Realizing the mother's predicament, she rushed to rescue her. Pulling the man by the hand, she said in her usual loud voice, and Golap Ma was known for this, she said in her usual loud voice, "Do you think she is a wooden image that you will awaken her spirit by pranayama and other rituals? You have no common sense. Don't you see the mother is getting hot and it is very uncomfortable?" But the mother didn't stop him, notice. The mother of the crazy and the insane. The greater the number of disciples and devotees, the more Holy Mother's troubles increased. But the compassionate mother was the embodiment of forbearance and forgiveness. She took the pain and suffering of her children upon herself. Sometimes she lamented, "Master, I can't bear any more burdens." But she did forbear more. Satyanendrat, oh my goodness.
Satyendranath?
So-and-so Majmudar's brother left this eyewitness account. I just can't say that name. Would you please say it for us?
Sure. It's Satyendranath and Sharjendra Majmudar's brother.
Okay.
Sharjendra.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Some afternoons, I was entrusted with the task of lining up the devotees who wanted to visit the mother in Udbodhan House. Some eccentrics pestered the mother. I saw an elderly man crying loudly and bumping his head in front of the mother. I noted another person begin to tell his life story to her without caring that other people were waiting in line. Again, someone put his head on the feet of the mother and remained there motionless. Another day, a man lay down in front of her and requested her to place her foot on his chest and awaken his consciousness right then. It was extremely difficult to make them understand or to stop their importunate demands. Sometimes I was irritated observing their childish emotions, and other times I could not control my laughter watching their immature behavior. One day when I joked about these people in front of the mother, she said to me, "My son, when you grow up, you will understand how much pain these distressed people carry in their hearts. You are not a mother." I'm going to repeat that. This is a call to our compassion and our tendency toward judgment. One day when I joked about these people in front of the mother, she said to me, "My son, when you grow up, you will understand how much pain these distressed people carry in their hearts. You are not a mother." On another occasion, I was in Jairambati and met a young man on the street there. He had walked the whole night from Vishnupur, 28 miles. His figure was strong and stout. He had bushy hair and his eyes were red like a hibiscus. He asked me, "Can you tell me where the mother's house is?" I told him, "Please come with me. I am also staying there." When I asked his name and dwelling place, he laughed and replied, "I have no name, no lineage, and no home. I am the sacrifice in the mother's worship, and I am waiting for the offering." I was dumbfounded, observing the nature of this strange devotee. He was not mad. He bowed down to the mother, and she asked him to take a bath in the pond. Immediately he dipped in the pond, and then the mother served him puffed rice and jalebis. Sitting near the mother, he began to eat like a child. The mother caressed his body with her hand and then said, "My son, now drink some water." She escorted him to her shrine, and I left. I don't know what transpired there, but I understood the mother initiated him. After having lunch prasad, that devotee fell into a deep sleep. Later, the mother told me, "This is his last birth. Such a person becomes desperate like this." Again, a call for us not to judge what we don't understand. It doesn't mean that we have to be as accommodating and tolerant as the mother. Oftentimes, our circumstances don't permit it. And oftentimes, the person will not cooperate with what we want to do for them. But we must not judge. We must not say, "This person is bad and wrong." Later, the mother told me, "This is his last birth. Such a person becomes desperate like this." The man and I went for a walk in the afternoon and became close friends. His nature was then gentle and his voice calm. He said, "Today is my new birth, my last birth too. I could not sacrifice my life for the motherland doing some heroic deed, so I offered myself to the mother of the universe. I have no more distress or agony." Afterwards, I met him a few times in Udbodhan House. Once that young man and I went to do plague relief in Bihar. with the monks of the Ramakrishna order. Seldom have I seen such a dutiful, humble, and untiring worker. While serving others, that terrible disease infected him. Just before his death, he opened his eyes and said, "The mother has come. Let me go." After returning to Calcutta, I gave this news to the mother, and she remained motionless for some time, with eyes cast down. So before we go on any further, we're about to start another paragraph. Any comments or questions, anything at all you'd like to say about the remarkable things that have been read?
Namaste, Brother Shankar. Namaste, everybody.
Yes, Shailesh. Hi. Namaste.
I'm speechless, I'm speechless. This devotee, the state of yoga he was in, there are such incredible people,
Mm-hmm.
they get attracted, or they are around all these elevated souls like Holy Mother. In our ordinary life, we may not even detect them.
Well, so often what happens is we judge them. We see somebody who is not normal, and we think there's something wrong with them, and we shy away from them.
Yeah, but I'm not much more focused on judgment part here, but I'm more interested in the state of yoga he was in. What an incredible state of mind he was in.
Yes.
Like when he asked him I missed the initial part of it. I mean, I was listening, but when the brahmachari asked him, "Who are you?" and he said his eyes were bloodshot and hair was not kept, and he said he is a sacrifice for the mother. I mean, that's something incredible.
Yes, I agree. And she recognized the truth of it and accepted him as such and initiated him, and he became this remarkable, serviceful person. Thank you, Shailesh. Yes, and these things leave us speechless. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
My sort of question / comment is about keeping a calm mind, the importance of that for japa meditation. I guess we need to put a little distance between thought and emotions. And Jill Bolte Taylor mentions this about the neural loops and the 90 seconds you have to sort of divert that physiology from getting entrenched. I think she also gives some techniques, and I don't remember all of them, but sometimes it's very hard when the thought comes and the emotions just connect. I don't know if you have any words of wisdom on how to break that and put distance.
Well, you mentioned Jill Bolte Taylor. She has a new book. You can find she's talks about the 90-second rule. And what happens is when certain things happen to us and it makes us feel in any way unsafe, the limbic system, the amygdalae, the two amygdala on both sides of the brain, and the hippocampi, again, these are part of the lower brain, the early brain that's there from the time that we're born. The rest of the brain develops, but this limbic system is there from the time we're born. And its job is to alert us to something that is threatening to the organism. Now, it may or may not be in actuality, but what neuroscience tells us, and Jill Bolte Taylor reports, is that that limbic system will discharge chemicals into the bloodstream. They have a lifespan of 90 seconds, those chemicals. They energize us. They bring us to full alert. It's beyond what would ordinarily happen with adrenaline or something like this. If we can simply pause and let the 90 seconds pass, then we can make a calm decision about the nature of what it is that set off this discharge of chemicals into the bloodstream. And one of the things that will, because what Jill Bolte Taylor says with great authority, she's a neuroscientist, she says, we are emotional beings who think. We're not thinking beings that have emotions. No. We are emotional beings that think. And so we should let it be in that order. And this heart-centered part of us that is part of this ancient part of us has great wisdom, but we are so trained to let our thoughts, as soon as this discharge goes into our bloodstream, we imagine all sorts of possibilities. We immediately leave the present moment and what's actually going on, and we imagine all sorts of possibilities, and so become completely entangled in our thoughts. So the thing to do is simply not let that happen. These are the neural loops that she talks about, these entanglements of thoughts. We have lots of old information that will try to make itself known and relevant to us, when in fact there's no reason whatsoever in the actual environment, the present moment, for those things to be applicable at all. Does that make sense, Swayam?
Yes, Brother Shankara. And so is it by practice and a deliberate effort to get out of that?
What the Gita tells us, and what Sri Ramakrishna tells us, and what the Swamis of this lineage and other lineages, I'm sure, tell us, is that if you make spiritual practice the center of your being, you don't need to worry about the deliberate practice of these things. Though there will be instances when discrimination and release have to happen. But when you are God-centered, then these things do not. It's the practice of that rather than the practice of controlling the neural loops themselves. Does that make sense?
Yes, Brother Shankara, that clears it. Thank you.
Thank Thanks for the question. Very relevant. Calmness of mind and stomach. We mustn't let our minds be upset. And when I say we mustn't, it's not a question of mustn't. It's just more auspicious for us not to let our minds be upset, and for that matter, to upset our stomachs by eating the kinds of foods that will upset our stomachs, or by overeating and all the things that will draw our attention to our stomachs. Or allowing ourselves to indulge in anxieties that give us stomach aches and headaches. Thank you, Swayam.
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
coming back to mother's, what you read about her and her patience and forbearance and equanimity, it teaches us how to be non-judgmental towards people who are looking so crazy and different. Often we see them in temples, some places, especially in India, some people cryingly and go round and round around the temple. When I was little, I used to wonder. After I grew up, I knew that there was so much pain in them. But this chapter really, few pages, really explains how people come with different reasons to.
They come here as well, dear.
Exactly, with different.
They come to this little chapel as well.
So much pain in their hearts. This is really so
Yes.
inspiring. Her forbearance and perseverance and patience is so inspiring to all of us. I think it's a great example for us.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara,
Yes, Katrina.
I do have a question in balancing the 90-second rule suggestion with wisdom. And that is at how do you balance it? Because a person can find themselves in a situation and maybe the 90-second suggestion would make a difference. But let's say a person finds themselves in a situation and they think it might not be, well, then it might be, quote unquote, some danger.
Mm-hmm.
Life-threatening danger.
Get the hell out of there.
Okay.
There's no question about it. I mean, if you correctly identify what's in the present moment as life-threatening danger, get the hell out of there.
Okay.
You know, I used to study Tai Chi.
Okay.
With a guy who was also a martial arts instructor. This was in Glendale, California. And he talked about what happens when somebody wants to attack you. He says, defend yourself only as a last resort. If you can, just run like hell. Just get away from there.
Okay.
And if we notice, that is what Swami Vivekananda did on at least 2 occasions I can remember in Chicago when he came there, because he was dressed in the terms of the time, in the mores of the time. He was dressed so peculiarly and looked so peculiar. He was twice attacked, and he did not try to. He did not use his yogic powers. He just ran. And no, if you correctly identify that there is a life-threatening or any other kind of truly threatening situation, just get the hell out of there.
Okay, thank you.
You bet, Katrina. And thanks for asking the question, because, there is that example of the story that Sri Ramakrishna tells about the mad elephant And this man's guru had told him that God is in everything. And so he's walking on the road one time, and toward him comes this elephant running, but it has a mahut. It has a someone sitting on the elephant that is trying to tell everyone, look out, mad elephant, get out of the way. And so the man says, oh, I don't have to worry about anything. God is in the elephant. So the elephant comes, picks him up with his trunk, and throws him against a tree. Well, of course, someone runs to get his guru. And the man regains consciousness, and the guru asks the man, well, why didn't you get out of the way? Well, you told me God was in everything. Yes, but God was also in the mahut. Why didn't you listen to the mahut Narayana? So we have to use our common sense. We have to use our common sense and not try to apply rules. The 90-second rule is a great rule, but if in 10 seconds or 30 seconds you've identified a situation as being absolutely untenable, what Jill Bolte Taylor is talking about is all those times when our left mind, with all of its tendencies, will leap out of the present moment. And, as Mark Twain said, in my life, 1,000 terrible things have occurred to me, most of which never happened. So, using the word occurred as a pun, they came to his mind. In my life, 1,000 terrible things have occurred to me, most of which never happened. So that's what's being talked about.
Okay, thank you. I understood.
Thank you, Katrina, for the question. Anything else, anyone?
The counting to 10 is similar to the 90 seconds. And I had to increase it to counting to 100 before I opened my mouth, because there were so many triggers in interacting with certain people that I could lose it in a second.
Yes.
And I really did find that actually counting shut my mind up enough and calmed the anxiety enough that I could, then behave more calmly when I finally spoke.
Beautiful, Beverly, beautiful, exactly. That was a rule of my father's father, my paternal grandfather. He said, when you get mad, count to 100.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
It really works.
And because the 90 seconds has passed, and those chemicals that have produced the anger have exhausted themselves. They disassemble themselves in 90 seconds, believe it or not. This is the neurochemistry of those chemicals. So you're absolutely right, Beverly.
It took a long time, though, because I had an instantaneous reaction, as you know.
Do I remember? Yes, I remember.
Yes. I took you to task many a time.
For those of you who don't know, Beverly and I go back to 1958 and high school. It's such a delight to have her with us. So yes, I knew Beverly when she had a hair trigger, as they say in Texas. She had a hair trigger.
I did.
Indeed.
And I probably still do if I get around too many people. But I get to pretend that I've grown wise in
No,
my old age.
you definitely have, dear. Just that
Thank you.
knowledge of counting to 100 is great wisdom. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara,
Yes, dear.
so resentment is not exactly anger, right? Is that a precursor of anger, or would this counting to 100 work for that, or?
Resentment?
Yes.
Resentment is jumping out of the present moment. Usually, in the present moment, there's nothing to be resentful about. There's something to be dealt with. But resentment is, I'm analogizing this to another situation, and oh, this is like that, and here we go again, and all that stuff. So I don't believe the limbic system releases these chemicals as to what we would relate to as resentment. Resentment is not really an emotion. Resentment may result in an emotion, but resentment is a creation of our left mind. And it's because we're saying there's something, I'm being taken advantage of here. And usually it's because we're jumping out of the present moment and analogizing what's happening in the present moment. Rather than dealing with what's happening in the present moment, we judge it and become resentful. Does that
Thank you
make
very
sense?
much. Yeah, that was very clear. Thank you.
Emptying the grudge bag every night is something that helped me a lot.
Yes.
You know, especially with family members and close associates like co-workers and things, you know, to just kind of go over the little nastinesses that hurt you during the day and take them out and throw them away. Eventually you can get kind of good at that so that you don't build up resentments. And I kind of disagree. I think that with very close associates, the laying on of resentment after resentment, because you don't get any, you can't change them and you haven't changed yourself, that resentment becomes a trigger that moves you to very quick anger.
No, you're absolutely right, Beverly. But what you just described in emptying the grudge bag is a very nice description of what we speak of as discrimination and release. As you said, you take it out of the bag, you look at it, you say, I don't need this anymore. This isn't serving me well, and you release it. So you empty that grudge bag. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And this is how we stay sane and calm. And as you say, not let the resentments build up till they turn into anger. Anger is almost always because we're not getting what we want. I mean, that kind of anger, resentment-related anger. As you said, you can't change them, and you haven't changed yourself.
Yep.
Thank you, Beverly. Anything
Well,
else?
thank you.
Anything else from anyone? Okay, it's a little after 9. Blow gently on that small flame of sacred yearning. It will grow in you. That's hard to do when you feel frail, I know. Forgive yourself. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be cheerful. May you have peace of mind. May you go forward in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being. The next opportunity we have to meet is tomorrow night for a study of Jnana Yoga. Any of you who'd like to join, please do. We'll go on with the Holy Mother as the mother of the mentally unbalanced next week. Any final thoughts from anyone? All right, dears.
Thank you, Brother Shankara.
We'll leave it at that. And
Hari Om.
as always, such a delight to be with you all. And away we go, as Jackie Gleason used to say. And away we go.
Good